So I was about 11 at the time. My dad liked to take us out camping in the summer and sometimes winter. My dad usually took me and all of my brothers camping, but only took me, Ethan, Kyle, and Trevor. This was strange because he would also take Michael too but didn't, but Michael was 18 at the time, so it was understandable. My dad drove me and my brothers to a forest to camp in. We got out of the car and set our tents up. Once we were done the sun was ready to set. We got a fire going and sat on some logs we found. My brother Kyle started to tell us some scary stories that now that I think about them are not that scary. I remember he told me a story that made me nearly pee my pants. Our dad fell asleep in his tent, so did Trevor, so it was just me, Kyle, and Ethan. Ethan was in the middle of telling a story, and all of a sudden, we heard rustling in the bushes. Ethan's face went pale. Kyle decided, like the idiot he is, he would go investigate. He would soon regret it, though. Kyle started walking over to the bushes, and the rustling got louder and louder until it stopped. Kyle split the bushes open, and he saw nothing. All of a sudden, a woman's scream in the distance was heard. Kyle ran into his tent. Ethan started calling him a wuss. The screaming was heard but closer. What the hell is? Who the hell is screaming? Ethan said. A thud was heard, and Ethan ran into his tent. I trailed behind him. I didn't want to stay outside on my own. It was the next day, and we told our dad what had happened last night. He thought it was bluff and that we were probably just imagining it because it was late at night. We backed our stuff and put it in the back of the car, and got in. Trevor went in the bushes to pee, so we were late getting home. Suddenly Trevor came running towards the car screaming, "Dad, Dad, someone's dead. Someone's dead." We didn't believe him. Trevor insisted we followed him to see it for ourselves, and oh boy, she was dead, all right. Her tongue was swollen, there was a pool of blood that was around the body. She was, at least from what I could tell anyway, stabbed 10 times. Bruises were all over her body. They were all sorts of colors from green to blue. A gun was near her shoe that was taken off. The gun had no bullets in. My dad called the police. They said, whoever did it must have planned it out, so then there was no DNA evidence. Not even a single fingerprint. To this day, I still get shivers down my spine the more I think about it. Maybe the screaming we heard was from the woman, who knows? I work midnight shift at a gas station, and I have for quite a while at various stations in different areas with varying levels of criminal activity. I have regulars, of course. I'm a small-statured woman, as is my partner the other half of the week, and we've always been partners, so these regulars often worry about us and keep watch on creepy occurrences when they can. I had one man who worked in the metro an hour away who would stop in every morning for his cigarettes. He never smiled or seemed friendly, and as I often do, I tried to think of what I could do that might make him smile one day. It took many months, but I finally pulled it off by having his cigarettes ready on the counter and already scanned for him to pay for as he walked in. He smiled, and then asked me, "Do you ever get scared on the night shift? You small girl, is not safe." I said I sometimes did, but we could lock the doors and hide if we had to, and that the provincial police, state troopers, if you're American, had a station close by and came in often to get their highway vehicles washed. I had a good rapport with those police. He nodded and then told me a story about when he first moved to our country from Eastern Europe with his wife and child back in the late 80s, early 90s. He fell asleep at work one night at the gas station he worked midnights at. When he woke up, the phone had been ringing for hours and his manager was shaking him violently, asking if he was all right. He was fine, he said. What was the problem? He was sorry he fell asleep. His manager screamed that it was fine he fell asleep. To look outside. All of their motor oil was missing and the outside of the place was a mess. The thieves had come and swiped all the oil and left him be because he slept through the entire thing, and then moved down the road to the next station for an encore. At that station, the clerk was awake and fought back, so the thieves stabbed him to death and left him to bleed out. When he finished telling me this, he concluded with, "If you ever feel sleepy, just lock the door and do it. It might save your life." I don't work at that station anymore, but I think about that guy all the time and wonder how his grandkids are. My high school GF called late one night after I was home and in bed. She said that something had happened and asked if I could come over. She was clearly shaken and not full of details. So I told my parents and drove over towards her house. At the top of her subdivision I was met by a cop with lights on. He asked where I was going and I told him about the call from my GF. He lets me go by and I come over the hill to the cul-de-sac where she lives and I see multiple cop cars around the circle. They watch me pull up and get out of my car. My GF comes running out of her house and meets me in the street. She explains that someone had broken into her neighbor's house and started beating her with something heavy. The neighbor managed to get out of the house and headed to my GF's house where she started banging furiously on the front door. My GF's dad was out of town, so her mom answered the door and the neighbor just fell into the foyer bleeding profusely from the head. Her mom looks up to see the attacker headed up the walkway towards the front door. She pulls the neighbor into the house and closes the door, hitting the attacker with it before it fully closed. He then took the heavy tool he had used to beat the neighbor and smashed the little window at the top of the door. Her mom started screaming and the attacker just turned around and walked up the street into the darkness. I spent the night there that night, along with 2 or 3 cops outside in their cars, and in the morning we could see blood still pooled on the floor in the foyer and splattered blood above the front door from where the attacker had swung the bloody tool to smash the window. No one was ever caught or even identified. It was just completely random. The neighbor survived and to my knowledge had no permanent physical injuries beyond scarring from having her scalp stapled shut. She moved away shortly after the incident. Update on victim's status and paragraphing, though probably not correctly. TLDR, GF's neighbor was brutally attacked in her home. She ran to my GF's house and the attacker fled after nearly getting into their house too. No one was ever caught.